What we like to do is we create our golf clubs by creating the science first. What are we looking to do? We're looking to hit it higher, spin it more, be more forgiving, feel a certain way. What exactly are we trying to do? So we prove it out in the lab environment, then it goes up to the CAD team, and they design the golf club around the science that we've just proven out. Then goes from there into the machine shop, where we can actually start forming these 3D pieces that we can touch, look, and feel at. Then we start into the machine shop, and then back to the grind shop, where they're going to actually hand grind on these master models and get them exactly where we need them to be, using the input that they've learned from working with our sports marketing athletes. That's where we start to see that blend. That grind shop actually acts as a sports marketing function, where we're grinding on a little bit of a different grind on a Justin Leonard wedge than we do on a Paul Casey wedge, figuring out things that are trends in those wedges. 2 years ago, we started seeing a lot of our athletes ask us to do what we call pulling the heels on our wedges, which is where we relieve the back part of the wedges, so when you lay them open, they sit a little closer to the ground. You look at our VR wedges now that we've just put out, on the 60s and 58s of those wedges, they have an aggressively pulled heel. So it's where the sports marketing aspect of the grind shop meets the aspect of where it comes in and it starts to get to market, where people can buy things like that. So following trends like that. Then from the grind shop area, they come up to the assembly shop, the Nike Tour shop, if you will, and that's where they start to put the golf clubs together. So we're going to visit each one of those, talk to a person who works in each one of those shops every day. So this is one of those labs. We talk about proving it in a lab environment. This is kind of where it all happens. The main thing I want to point out, as we walk into each one of the shops in this facility, you're going to notice this machine here. We call it the green machine. We're going to talk exactly about how we use it and why it's important to us when we get into the next shop. We spend over $300,000 a year purchasing competitor equipment. We go out there and we figure out what our competitors are doing. We rip their clubs apart, we durability test them, we put them on the robot, we player test against them and with them. You always want to know what your competition's doing, right? We also will try and prove or disprove theories.
Beginning of it, but we actually not only test all of our prototypes as well as almost all of our competitors as well. So the minute something new comes out, we get it, we take it apart, and I try to break it. So our big fun one that we try to break everything in is our floor cannon. And I'm sure this was a big thing everyone heard about a couple of years ago, but basically it's testing the actual sweet spot on the club, as you can see here. And I'll do a quick demo. Doing is shooting golf balls at it 130 miles an hour to see what the rebound time is going to be. So from that we can actually find the sweet spot of the golf club, what this picture shows here. So for most of them it's usually around this top heel part. But the smaller version of it is this guy that you guys are seeing in front of right there. Bad thing about this one, we hit it in 23 different spots, 4 times each, takes me about 3.5 hours. And also the bad part is you actually have to take apart a golf club to do it, which not really good for trying to hit it afterwards. So from this one, the USGA made a shorter version of it. And they basically do the same thing, and you can keep the club intact, but you just hit it at 9 different speeds. So from that, we can still actually measure the velocity that's coming out of it and how long it takes to rebound with it. And basically, and this is one that I actually have on the PGA, so it just says green means go, you pass, or red means you're too hot and it's not good.
It's important to note too, we test all of our golf clubs prior to assembling them, both through our custom facility and also through this facility. And then also, when a lot of our players are going to go and switch a driver, they'll walk it into the trailer and say, okay, can you test it, measure it, document it, and we're good to go.
So all the groove measurements that are changing, this machine here will actually measure, as you can see on the screen, actually measure each one of these grooves, almost like a record player. So this little scribe right here will go across every one of these grooves, and I can measure the depth, the width, what the edge radius is, which is the big one now, so it's not too sharp. And from that I can see whether or not it's conforming or not to the new rules that are coming out for next year. This is our moment of inertia machine. And again, what that basically means is the resistance to twisting. So the best example is like an ice skater. When she has her arms out, she's moving slower. For a golf club, we want that as high as possible because if you hit it like on the toe or the heel, it's not going to turn as much. So what this does, it'll actually move back and forth each one of these different positions to measure what the moment of inertia is. And the last one, turn around, is measuring the center of gravity. It's in this big box actually because it's similar to an aeronautical type company that we use, And it's so sensitive to air pressure that if the air conditioning comes on in here, it will actually affect our readings. So we have such a tight tolerance when we actually measure these that we have to keep it inside this. But it'll go in different positions, and from that we can actually pinpoint the exact center of gravity location in the club head itself. And beyond that, we do a lot of our shaft testing. I don't know if you guys already walked into assembly yet. This is actually measuring deflection. So from that, you'll hear the theoretical kick point of a shaft. We measure at each different points along the shaft to see how much it's going to bend at each point. Behind you over there is a torque machine. Same thing, I'll actually measure the resistance. For example, if I get a club head to do every single one of these tests, probably takes me about 2 hours to do every single one. That is necessary. But what it basically does is, this is almost like a lever arm. So it moves in each one of these different positions here. And it'll actually rotate around this like circular table. And from that, the arm levels it out to where the center of gravity is. And I will actually put it in a different position to find out how far it is up this way. Does that make sense?
Once the CAD team has taken it and they've drawn a club around that science, they're going to go ahead and grow actual prototypes of this. We've got a prototype growing in here. I'm going to go in. Yeah. So that produces what we call powders, these blue ones up there. Let's take about time we get to see the club in real life, outside of a 3D world on a computer. We can see how the club sits on the ground. We can actually look at the lines on it. Sometimes a club looks really good on the computer. You get it out and it looks a little bit closed or a little bit open, a little flat, a little upright.
I know what you're
Computers are
looking
good,
for.
but to a certain extent, we have to get it back to the craftsmanship. Where we tune a golf club. You can tune it like a musical instrument. You can put ribs in there to stabilize the crown. A lot of times the sound you're hearing is actually the vibration of the crown connected to the face. So we can tune it to produce a certain sound. Every time you change the shape of that sole of that golf club, you're going to change the acoustics of the golf club. So each individual club needs to be tuned to produce the sound that we're trying to go. Some clubs will sound a little more dead, others will sound a little bit active. Our clubs generally sound somewhere in the middle there. So this is Sarah who works in here.
Hi.
So we're going to keep each one of these cannons. We're going to, yeah, you can open the door, but don't go in. Each one of these cannons is used every time we decide to switch vendors overseas, switch types of manufacturing, switch to a new type of process. We're going to get a prototype of that club and stick it in here and fire golf balls at it until it fails.